Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Screeny. All relationships have their fair share of ups and downs, don't they? But if you're going on Dr. Phil to air your issues, then there has to be something fundamentally wrong that goes beyond the usual bickering. The doc is the last resort for anyone, but let's face it, who really wants to air their dirty laundry in public? Luckily for these women, McGraw does not take abuse lightly and took these spineless dudes to task over their shocking behavior. Join us as we take a look at the worst boyfriends on Dr. Phil. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos about your favorite movies and TV shows. Bad Boy John. When it comes to relationships, there's one thing that's a massive no-no. Well, there are a few things actually, but violence is at the very top of that list. Kirsten loved her older boyfriend John, but claims that he was both verbally and physically abusive. No longer sure of how to protect herself, she took him to the show to try and figure out their issues. The teenager had a long list of accusations against her fella. According to her, he grabbed her by the throat and pushed her against the side of a car, hit the brakes causing her head to slam on the dash, and locked her in her bedroom when she tried to visit family members without him. Phil, being a dad himself, couldn't understand why this beautiful girl was putting up with all of John's nonsense. Kirsten didn't have much of a reason either, but said that she had tried to leave him on multiple occasions, but it never seemed to stick. No matter what she did, she always ended up coming right back to her toxic lover. The list of awful things this guy did to his girlfriend was pretty sickening and went way beyond the aforementioned stuff. One time, he even threw a bucket of ice water over her when she wouldn't come to bed. Kirsten's parents sat opposite the couple, mortified that they were in this position. Her mama was crying, clearly lost for words. Mike the Boxer. Men that hit women are the lowest of the low. In fact, anyone that hits their significant other, regardless of what sex they are, should be rounded up and sent to Mars if you ask us. But it happens more often than you think. One young woman said that her boyfriend, Mike, was the love of her life, but he was so violent that it caused her significant injury. Kirsten had a wealth of photo evidence against her boo, from nasty black eyes to bleeding earlobes. When she fell pregnant with their son, Mike didn't stop the abuse, which continued after the birth. At one point, when the mother of two was holding her 3-month-old son, the hot-tempered psychopath started repeatedly hitting her around the head. Even then, she only called the police because her friend's mother forced her to. Rather than leave him then and there, she thought Dr. Phil might be able to help Mike in order to salvage their relationship. The doc spoke to Kirsten alone initially, asking her if she realized that she had a responsibility to her children to protect herself. But it was pretty clear that the young mom didn't think that leading her hard-hitting hubby was even an option. As for Mike, he didn't think there was anything wrong with himself at all. Honestly, he couldn't make this stuff up. Cory the Conqueror. It's not just physical violence that makes a boyfriend absolutely terrible. Oh no, there are multiple ways that someone can be a complete trash bag to the ones who love them. Most of us have had our fair share of arguments with our beloveds, but in healthy relationships, it's usually about who forgot to take out the trash or something else equally as mundane. In Elizabeth and Cory's relationship, all hell broke loose if Elizabeth didn't stick to Cory's strict set of rules. Free will? Forget it! The pair has been together 3 years when they went on the show back in 2016, as Elizabeth just couldn't keep living under the dictatorship of Cory any longer. Although she loved him, she couldn't put up with the rules he set for her living in his house. The blonde's beauty claims that Cory had control over everything, from what she wore to the finances and what friends she was allowed to have in the house. The list of no-nos went on, and it turned out that Cory also had control over all of her phone records and social media accounts. However, Elizabeth wasn't allowed to know what he was up to under any circumstances. What did the tyrant have to say about it? Well, he made her the woman she is today, and he was simply an old-fashioned guy. We don't know about old-fashioned, but he should have been scrapped for a newer model. Mad Matt. Sometimes relationships start out fine, but go downhill really quickly after a few months of bliss. When the rose-tinted glasses come off, it can be disheartening to realize that the person you thought you loved is in fact a giant douche. This 20-year-old thought that she had met her knight in shining armor when she hooked up with Matt, as the couple enjoyed 5 lovely months together before he started showing his true colors. Suddenly, Eileen was being accused of sleeping with pretty much everyone, including her boyfriend's friends and her ex. Although there was no truth in these accusations, it didn't stop the once affable lover calling her every name under the sun. But, as in the case in most toxic relationships, Eileen didn't want to leave. It didn't take long for her to fall pregnant, and when they welcomed a son into their lives, Matt did the worst thing that any man can ever do to a woman post-birth. He made fun of the changes in her body, calling her beat up. What an absolute gem of a man, right? Phil read out a list of names that Matt had called Eileen, but couldn't read the entire thing because some of the slurs were so horrendous and offensive they couldn't be uttered on TV. When Matt was asked his side of the story, he maintains that his girlfriend, by then 7 months pregnant with baby number 2, was carrying a child that wasn't his and that she was lying about her faithfulness. Trevor the Tank. Some people stay in abusive relationships longer than they ever thought they would, including Cindy, who has been married to her husband for 16 long years. On the outside, she said they looks like the perfect family unit: mom, dad, and 3 beautiful children. The couple ran a successful business, and to onlookers, it looks like a real paradise. In reality, her husband describes their family life as a soup sandwich. Cindy claims that Trevor had such a short fuse that he was like Jekyll and Hyde. At 1 minute, perfectly fine, and the next, screaming like a madman. If she did the slightest thing to upset him, he would horrifically insult her, at times in front of the kids. Despite being terrified of her husband, Trevor insisted that there was nothing to be scared of. After all, he was the nicest guy in the world. It was her with the issue, her with the problems, right? Wrong. The doc soon saw through his pretense thanks to some pre-show footage. The couple both separately recounted an incident in which Cindy wouldn't back down during an argument, and Trevor headbutted her into submission, breaking her nose. The downtrodden wife broke down, saying she felt like she got what she deserved. The only thing anyone deserves in this situation is a restraining order and some divorce papers. In the words of Dr. Phil McGraw, enough is enough. Heather's hell. Heather couldn't have predicted that her marriage to the man she loved would go so spectacularly downhill. The hubby was so controlling that he openly admitted to telling her what to wear, claiming that he thought it would go without saying that her wardrobe should change when she tied the knot. Although, he still cheated on her and flirted with other women left, right, and center. Dr. Phil asked the gent in question how he could possibly defend this behavior, but Heather's husband didn't seem apologetic for the way he treated her. Instead, he said it was just a product of how he was raised and the time he spent in Iraq during the conflicts. The war vet looked his wife straight in the eyes and said, "Sometimes I feel like you are a burden to me." Isn't that romantic? Can't you hear the angels singing and the sweet violins playing in the background? No, it's more like the sound of a car wreck in slow motion. Heather looked like she was on the verge of tears as she tried to hash it out. McGraw told the tight-jawed man in no uncertain terms that what he was doing and saying to his wife crossed a line that is not meant to be crossed. Judging by how he held himself, we can't imagine it did any good in the long run. Josh the Jailer. Some of the footage that Skye provided the doc with for her appearance on the show was pretty triggering. Skye claims that her husband Josh was so abusive that he often had to trap herself in a room to get away from his violent outbursts, while Josh said that Skye brought it out of him, and that these incidents were largely her fault. Sure, Josh, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're the lowest of the low, right? What a moron. Skye's hubby went on to say that his wife had a lot to do with the violence as well, and that she also hit him. On one occasion, he had her arrested for domestic violence. But when he was asked about it by Dr. Phil, Josh admitted that he had told the police that it was worse than it actually was. When Skye gave her version of events, she said that Josh threw a vacuum cleaner at her, and when she began screaming for help, he covered her mouth with his hand. Josh's lies to the police had his wife in jail for 5 years, given 80 hours of community service, and forced to undertake a 6-month domestic violence course. Not exactly a gift you want from your significant other, is it? Whatever happened to a nice bunch of roses instead? While she was in the slammer, Josh took her credit cards and went gambling, losing a load of their money too. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.